Oh, my bankbook is missing. I'm sure I put it in the back of this drawer. I thought, could it be them? Despite supporting the life of the eldest son and his wife who have been living together for several years, they have ignored me for 3 years without even saying thank you. I just wanted them to show a little gratitude. But it's okay now. I will never forgive them. My name is Emily, 56 years old. I retired from my company to care for my unstable mother-in-law. Currently, I am working from home while providing care. Although I was a few years away from retirement, I couldn't leave my mother-in-law living alone, so I decided to live with her. My husband is away on business and comes home once a month at best. But when he does come back, he brings lots of vegetables and Japanese sweets that my mother-in-law likes. Thank you. I'm so grateful for everything you do for me. I wish I could have fed your father, too. Every time my mother-in-law opens her mouth, she expresses her gratitude to us and her feelings for my father-in-law. He passed away over 10 years ago from cancer, and in the end, he couldn't even eat his favorite foods. Maybe he could have been saved if we had done the tests earlier. By the time the illness was discovered, it was too late for treatment, only symptom relief was possible. So, my mother-in-law often says she wishes she could have fed my father-in-law the delicious foods she eats. My mother-in-law's condition varies greatly from day to day. Some days she's bedridden and barely eats. And other days she's energetic and goes for a walk by herself. I'm often surprised by her unpredictable behavior, but well, as long as she enjoys her days, I'm happy to watch over her. However, there's a troublesome event for my mother-in-law and me that happens 2 or 3 times a month. It's when the eldest son and his wife from the neighborhood show up. Mom, Grandma, long time no see. Were you well? We're starving. Can you make something to eat right away? Sorry to intrude. Mother-in-law, I'm hungry, so please hurry. Eldest son Tom and his wife Catherine. They got married a year ago and frequently come to our house like this. They appear suddenly demanding meals to be made. And sometimes even terribly asking for pocket money. They probably know the day when the mother-in-law's pension comes in. Hey, Grandma. Today's the day your pension comes in, right? Sorry, but could you donate a little to us, the less fortunate? I thought, it's starting again. Every time, they don't leave until they get the money. Tom, enough is enough. What about your job? Aren't you working? Stop begging for Grandma's precious pension. Huh? What's it to you? This is between me and Grandma. Right? Isn't that right, Grandma? The gentle and timid mother-in-law can't talk back when spoken to so strongly. She ends up giving in to the persistence and goes to get her wallet, handing over $100,000. This is the routine. Her face shows she's troubled and wants to refuse, but can't say it. So, I often speak up for her, but when I do, it usually ends in a quarrel. I report everything to my husband who's away on business. He just sighs in exasperation, saying, what a troublemaker, not holding a steady job. What is he even doing? Just got married and he's already hopeless. My husband does scold our son, but it seems to have no effect over the phone. This is how my mother-in-law and I feel exhausted just by their visits. Losing the will to do anything else. I'm tired. Yes, really. It's like they drain all my energy. I endured thinking it was only 2 or 3 times a month. But their visits became more frequent, increasing our stress. Then, an incident happened. In the middle of a weekday, my son suddenly came home. So, I got fired from my job. And, for a while, I want to live here. Fired. My son had been repeatedly absent without leave. And even lost a USB, containing important company data. There was talk of a pay cut at first, but he ended up fighting with his boss and getting fired. Despite being clearly at fault, he seems unrepentant. Seriously. None of them even do their jobs properly and act all high and mighty. That's why I hate people who act like they're elite. So, I'll be moving in next week, just so you know. Wait a minute. Living together is out of the question. This is too sudden. The mother-in-law's health isn't good every day, you know. Although I tried to refuse, Tom didn't seem to be changing his mind. He's always been stubborn, deciding to do something regardless of what anyone says. And I doubt he'd listen to me. As expected, he got even more upset, saying, it's already decided, so no way. I've cancelled the apartment lease and requested a moving company. If you still say I can't live here, then you're going to pay for our living expenses, right? I couldn't help but sigh. If my husband were here, he would sternly scold them and send them away. But I can't stand up to them alone. Hey, Emily, is Tom moving in here? If so, should I go to a facility? I'll be in the way, and those kids aren't even working. What are you talking about, mother-in-law? Don't worry about such things. I'll make sure Tom gets a job, and he'll be leaving soon. I feel terribly sorry for making my elderly mother-in-law worry like this. Indeed, we doted on our only son but never intended to raise him to be so unreasonable. I hate to say it, but the son I knew was kind and considerate. He clearly changed after meeting his wife, Catherine. To ease my mother-in-law's worries, I reassured her. Mother-in-law, you don't have to worry about anything. I intend to take good care of you. Repeating my explanation several times. The mother-in-law's tense face slowly relaxed, but then. The day the son and his wife moved and arrived all too soon. We had separate bedrooms, but we rearranged the rooms to share one. As she felt insecure being alone. Her desire to share a room showed how anxious she was. Soon after, my son and his wife arrived, and their behavior from the first day was appalling. Hey, Mom. We're planning to use the entire second floor for our room, that's okay, right? From today, the second floor bathroom is ours only. You guys don't come upstairs, okay? Yeah, really. We're still technically newlyweds, you know. We don't want unnecessary people coming and going, so please understand. They even moved all the stuff from my workroom on the second floor to the hallway on the same day. I was speechless, which is probably what they meant by this phrase. If I stayed silent, they would do and say whatever they wanted. Mom, the mortgage on this house is still ongoing, right? I don't plan to pay rent until I find a job. Nor do I intend to pay for groceries or utilities, so take care of it. I wasn't expecting much, but I was increasingly irritated. I see. And with this conversation, I was ignored by my son and his wife from then on. A week has passed since my son and his wife moved in, but he shows no signs of job hunting. Moreover, his wife leaves dirty dishes unwashed and doesn't do much laundry either. Additionally, every 2 weeks we have to take my mother-in-law to the clinic. But the car is always missing because they use it without asking. The car is left full of trash and low on gas, with the fuel light on, and they don't even refuel it. As a result, we have to take a taxi for the clinic visits. Despite being overwhelmed with things to do, my mother-in-law, who should be relaxing, ends up helping with the housework. Thinking this is clearly wrong, I say to my son, Tom, are you even job hunting? You can't just stay at home all the time, do something. At least clean up your dishes. But my son ignores me, even though he can hear me. He just keeps on ignoring me. He then complains to his wife, lately, I've been hearing these hallucinations, you know. Just now, I heard something about job hunting or whatever. We have a place to live and food to eat, so why work? Stupid, right? And about cleaning up, whoever notices it should just do it. I get you. Ever since I came to this house, I've been hearing hallucinations too. And I've even seen 2 ghosts. Scary. They laugh about it. They're referring to my mother-in-law and me when they mention hallucinations and ghosts. Their utter disregard and selfishness are just appalling. But after consulting with my mother-in-law, we decided to let them be for a bit longer, believing that our chance for payback will come eventually. That's how we concluded the conversation. Like the son and his wife. My mother-in-law and I constantly talk about them when they're not around. Did I make a mistake in raising my child? I never meant to spoil him. But seeing how he turned out, I guess I did. What are you talking about? Emily, you worked hard at your job, raising a child, and doing household chores. The fault lies with Tom for not appreciating his parents' efforts. And that wife of his, honestly, she's the worst. I'd like to see her parents' faces. Being treated like this. We were not content to just sit back and take it. And start discussing how we could get them out of the house. And make them regret their actions. Since we share a bedroom. My mother-in-law and I spend from morning till night excitedly discussing this. In this situation, I might have been depressed if I were alone. But together, it feels like we can get through it. Before we knew it, nearly 3 years had passed since they moved in. Anyway, it's been 3 years since they started ignoring us. Maybe they think we're ghosts. That's true. But their savings must be running out soon, right? Indeed, they haven't paid a penny for rent or living expenses. But they must be covering their cell phone bills and dining out. I've heard they're estranged from Catherine's parents, so they're unlikely getting financial help. They might ignore us now, but surely they'll come to us for help once they run out of money. We've decided that's when we'll take our revenge. It was 2 weeks after that conversation. That day, we were busy preparing for my mother-in-law's clinic visit. But I noticed my son acting fidgety since morning. He didn't seem hungry, rather, it looked like he was searching for something. Knowing he would ignore me if I spoke, I pretended not to notice and left for the hospital. But when I returned home, I noticed that my son and his wife were gone. Thinking the worst, I went to check my bedroom. Oh, my bank book is missing. I'm sure I put it in the back of this drawer. Could it be them? As I was thinking this was too much, even criminal, my mother-in-law came and asked. Emily, what's wrong? You look pale, did something happen? So, I told her. Tom and Catherine stole my bank book. It seems they took the bank book that was kept here. What? The house mortgage is $2,000 a month. On top of that, I've been supporting the life of my son and his wife who haven't paid a penny. And this is the result. I didn't expect them to say thank you, but I at least wanted them to show some gratitude. But it's okay now. I will never forgive them. Although the bank book was stolen, according to my online banking, no money has been withdrawn from the account yet. I rushed to the bank to close the account. They were mistaken if they thought they could withdraw cash. With just the bank book, without knowing the PIN, and without the seal. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became at my son and his wife. I told my husband about the stolen bank book, and he said, "It's over. We can disown them for all I care." My mother-in-law suggested reporting to the police. But we decided to leave the house as quickly as possible, making it our last resort. I couldn't let them run wild anymore, and refused to be taken advantage of. Although I felt sorry for the sudden upheaval. We decided to stay at a hot spring inn until the problem was resolved. Mother-in-law, I'm sorry. I'll work on resolving this issue quickly, so please bear with it here for a while. Don't worry about me. Besides, I'm happy to stay at such a luxurious inn. At that moment, I resolved that once this problem was settled, I would definitely find a comfortable new home for my mother-in-law. A few days later, after completing various procedures, I finally had a moment to relax. Then, unexpectedly, I received a call much sooner than I had anticipated. Of course, the caller was my son. Hello? Mom? You haven't been home lately, are you on a trip? Grandma's not there either, so I was just wondering what happened and got worried. His voice was clearly trembling, and he sounded upset. It's odd, isn't it? He ignored me for 3 years, yet now he can talk when he's in trouble. Oh. What's the matter? This is the first time you've spoken to me in 3 years. Do you need something? By the way, I have no business with you guys. Don't say that, please. I don't understand, but we received a notice to vacate the house by the end of the month. It's our own house, so what's going on? The real estate agent, who took care of us, was outraged when he heard our story and quickly proceeded with the paperwork. I didn't expect him to send the eviction notice to my son within 2 days. Impressive. The real estate agent had acted so promptly, I decided to tell my son the truth. That house? I sold it because I thought it was no longer needed. And it seems the new buyer wants you to leave soon. What? That's. Even if you say that, we have nowhere to live. Where are you and Grandma now? We'll come there. My son and his wife still try to use us, even now. Enough, is what I feel. What? Why are you crying to me now? What a pathetic man. You've freeloaded for 3 years, ignoring me and Grandma. Isn't that a bit too convenient? Just so you know, I intend to cut ties with you. Your father agrees with this decision. Don't say that, please. I didn't mean it. I wanted to get along with you and Grandma. And I'm looking for a job, too. My mother-in-law and I are astonished at the lies spilling from my son's mouth. If he had shown any genuine remorse, we might have reconsidered. But he had already crossed the line by stealing the bankbook. By the way, you stole my bankbook from the bedroom, didn't you? What were you planning to do with it? You thought as long as you got the money, everything would be fine, right? Lying won't do you any good. No, that's not. I could tell from the other end of the phone that my son was on the verge of tears. Then, realizing my son was useless, his wife took the phone. Hey. What do you think you're doing? Kicking your son and his wife out of their house, doesn't your heart ache? Are you a demon? Just when I thought what she would say next, my daughter-in-law started hurling hysterical insults at me. She even went as far as to say, "You're just living off Grandma's pension, too. You're no different from Tom. Acting all high and mighty without a job." I was so shocked that I froze for a moment with my mouth open. What? Jobless? Do you think I could pay off the mortgage of that big house if I were jobless? I've been paying $2,000 every month. And, for your information, I'm not jobless. I felt it was pointless to tell her the truth. Essentially, her not realizing this just shows her level of unawareness. In reality, I'm earning about $5,000 a month from my remote work. But of course, I see no need to tell these two. Well, if they had seen the contents of the bankbook, they would probably have figured it out. But I had to say this much to her clearly. Hey, Catherine. You're jobless, too, yet you always wear branded items. Where did you get those? I think the one acting strange here is you. Huh? I suspect, but can't confirm, that she's in debt, always carrying new designer bags and wallets. Even my son, before being fired, worked at a decent company and earned a fair salary. It seems like she's the one who ruined everything. Anyway, I have no intention of prying into your private affairs. But if you're in debt, you'd better deal with it quickly before things get out of hand. Also, please leave that house as soon as possible. I'll take my leave now. Though I had more to say, I decided to let them face their impending doom on their own. After hanging up, I ignored all the apology emails from my son. My husband, who had also been contacted, dismissed them with even colder words than I did. We've been ignored until now, but it's our turn to ignore them. They should thoroughly enjoy their hellish lives. A few months later, I heard that the couple had moved out of the house into a shabby apartment. Catherine had accumulated a significant amount of debt. My son tried to initiate a divorce. But they decided to repay the debt together since it was also in his name. with both of them jobless. They cannot repay and are now busy working while being chased by debt collectors. Their hellish life continues, but they should try their best to overcome it. As for me, I'm currently considering a house to live in with my mother-in-law. My husband is likely to return from his business trip soon. So we're planning to live together in a comfortable house, enjoying a peaceful and mom is struggling living on her pension. You can work even a bit, should support her. At the inheritance meeting after the death of her husband, Tom, the second son, spoke seriously to the eldest son and his wife. However, it seemed to have no impact on them. What do you mean by support? Just because she only has her pension, doesn't mean we can easily give her our money. Exactly. Are you implying that Catherine has always been scheming to grab our money? Suddenly, the eldest son and his wife looked at me with a bitter expression. It wasn't a kind look one would give to a parent. Stop acting like a parasite. It's annoying. That old woman living on her pension should stay out of everything except for ceremonies, and just behave herself. Hey, enough is enough. Tom reprimanded them, but I just looked down, clenching my fists. Not only did they wish for my husband to be gone, but they also complained about the inheritance and even called me a parasite. I made mistakes in how I raised them. I can't take it anymore. Nevertheless, I spoke to the eldest son and his wife with utmost calmness. I understand what you're saying. Let's become estranged. My name is Catherine Johnson. I'm turning 65 this year. Currently, I live with my husband who has retired. My husband is kind and considerate, and we've supported each other for a long time. We were blessed with 2 sons, John and Tom. Currently, both of them are married. Lately, our house has been showing signs of age, so my husband and I were planning to renovate it. We thought that if we were going to renovate, it might be good to live with our eldest son, John, and his wife. So, we contacted John. John, we've decided to renovate the house. How about living together with us after the renovation? When I said this over the phone, John was clearly reluctant. I really can't think of living together. Emily would hate it too. But if we're going to renovate, I want to prepare a room for you two as well. Isn't that just convenient for you? If you have so much money to spare for renovation, just give us some. We'd gladly take that. I could hear Emily, John's wife, saying over the phone, living together is seriously impossible. I see. Okay, forget about what I just said. The eldest son and his wife are always like this. For some reason, they always act superior and treat us coldly. After hanging up the phone, I relayed John's feelings to my husband. He looked a bit saddened but spoke cheerfully. It can't be helped. Let's renovate our home to be barrier-free so we can live comfortably, just the 2 of us in our old age. Following that, our home was renovated as per our wishes, transforming into a barrier-free residence. A few months after the renovation was completed, we planned to have a meal with our eldest son and his wife as well as our second son and his wife. Tom, our younger son, and his wife, Karen, were the first to arrive. Karen is a thoughtful person. She handed me a gift and immediately went to the kitchen to help. Catherine, your cooking is as wonderful as ever. Well, thank you. It's a great help with you assisting, Karen. As they were chatting, the eldest son and his wife arrived. As soon as they arrived, they firmly seated themselves on the sofa and demanded tea. Seeing me preparing the tea, Emily and John made irritated comments. You really don't pay attention, do you? Exactly. We are the guests here, aren't we? Hurry up. As I silently set the tea in front of the 2 of them, Tom chastised John from the side. John, can't you do at least that much by yourself? You stay out of this. I sighed at John's intimidating remarks. Tom and Karen have always been kind to us, but even to Tom, John always had a domineering attitude. However, the reason we invited the siblings this time was that we had an important matter to discuss. As the dinner began, John, who seemed displeased, started speaking while eating. "Hey, Dad, you called us here for some reason, right? Spit it out quickly." "Yes, well." My husband glanced at me, and I gave a slight nod. "The truth is, I've been diagnosed with lung cancer." Tom and Karen looked genuinely shocked, but the faces of John and Emily didn't change much. "Dad, what's the current situation with the cancer?" Tom asked in a trembling voice, and the husband responded quietly. "I'll be hospitalized starting next week, but it has already metastasized throughout my body, and I've been given only 6 months to live." "Oh no." Karen covered her mouth, trying to hold back tears, and I bit my lip. "Well, Dad is getting old after all," John remarked as if it were about someone else. Emily said, "Well, you can't beat age, right? My uncle also passed away quickly from stomach cancer." Their insensitive words made me angry, and I couldn't help but raise my voice. "Would you two please stop? Catherine, let's not go any further." "But..." My husband calmed me down and started speaking quietly to our children. "I want to ask you all to look after Catherine after I'm gone." "Of course, Dad. I'll take good care of Mom, so don't worry." "That's right. Please focus on taking care of yourself." Tom and Karen spoke reassuringly. However, the elder son and his wife seemed busy with their phones, seemingly ignoring the father's words. After the meal, the gathering came to an end. Since John and Emily left swiftly, I went outside to see Tom and Karen off. "Mom, I know it's tough, but please stay strong. We'll definitely help out too, so please let us know if you need anything." "Thank you, Tom, Karen." They had such a conversation and saw off Tom and Karen. Since my husband preferred palliative care over surgery and chemotherapy, he was admitted to a hospice the following week. I began visiting the hospice almost daily, with Tom and Karen assisting with transportation and nursing care. However, no matter how much I reached out, the eldest son and his wife never visited. And about 5 months after his admission, as my husband's condition worsened and thinking it might be his last moments, I strongly urged the eldest son and his wife to come. They showed up, seemingly displeased. However, John didn't even hold my husband's hand or speak to him. Instead, he looked at my emaciated husband with an expression that seemed almost repulsed. "I've shown my face, that's enough, right? We have things to do, so we'll be leaving now." The eldest son and his wife said so and left the patient room hurriedly in less than 10 minutes. Right after they left the room, I noticed that Emily had forgotten her jacket. I chased after them to return it. As I approached the corridor from the stairs, I spotted the eldest son and his wife slowly descending. They didn't notice me and were having a conversation. "Seems like Dad's really reaching the end." "Hey, what happens to the inheritance once your father's gone?" John grinned slyly in response to Emily's question. Even though Dad was just an ordinary office worker, Mom and the others recently renovated the house and are living quite comfortably. Maybe they've been investing in stocks or something. We can probably expect a decent inheritance, can't we? Yee, I'm so excited. I've been wanting to go on an overseas trip. And I want a designer bag too. Yeah, we just need to wrap things up quickly now, haha. Hearing their conversation, I couldn't help but tear up. I couldn't bear to let my husband hear such a conversation. In the end, I couldn't confront the two of them and simply returned to the patient room. 2 weeks later, my husband passed away. I cried for a long time by my husband's side, but Tom and his wife Karen were there to comfort me. With their support, I managed to take on the role of the primary mourner and successfully oversee the funeral proceedings without any issues. After the funeral, when it was just family left, John spoke up, seemingly unable to wait any longer. "Hey, about Dad's inheritance. What are you thinking, bringing that up now? We just had the funeral today." Tom quickly reprimanded him, but John glared back at Tom. "You, being the younger son, should just stay quiet." I let out a sigh. We'll have a discussion about the inheritance next week, so, for today, please go home. Upon hearing those words, the eldest son and his wife smirked and promptly left. The following week, the cheerful eldest son and his wife and the solemn-faced younger son and his wife came to our house for the inheritance discussion. I made an announcement in front of both couples. First off, I should inform you that your father's inheritance amounts to $20,000. What? Upon hearing my statement, John looked as if he was caught off guard. I intend to split this according to the legal inheritance shares. Half for me, and a quarter each for the two of you. Wait a minute. Is there really only $20,000? Despite my calm explanation, John persisted. I handed him a thick envelope. All the documents are here. Please review them. After scanning the documents, John and Emily's expressions turned noticeably sour. Damn. Dad was really stingy. Are we only getting $5,000? That's so little. If that's the case, we should get the house too. In the face of the clearly discontented couple, Tom spoke with a voice filled with anger. Mom is living in that house. I don't care about that. It's probably because of those renovations that there's no money left. Exactly. If the inheritance is this small, then hand over the house. Facing the frustrated couple, I calmly spoke up. This house was painstakingly renovated by your father so that the two of us could live here during our old age. I cannot simply hand it over. As long as I'm alive, I'll take care of it. What? Trying to profit all by yourself is unfair. John, with a fury as if he was about to lunge at me, glared intensely. Bro, stop it. Tom restrained John. Your father worried about me until the very end. You might not understand, John. While looking at the agitated me, Tom began to speak softly. Mom, we will renounce our inheritance. Please accept our share as well. It would give peace to Dad's soul. Beside him, Karen nodded in agreement. Tom, you don't need to worry. I said that, but the eldest son and his wife interjected again. If you guys don't want it, then hand that share over to us. Exactly. We'll gladly take it. There's no way that can happen. Mom's living on a pension, and it's tough. Those of us who are working should support her. Tom fervently scolded the eldest son and his wife, but it didn't seem to faze them in the slightest. Support, you say? Just because she only has her pension doesn't mean she can just hand over our money that easily. Right. Or maybe, from the beginning, you intended to take our money, didn't you, Catherine? Suddenly, the eldest son and his wife looked at me with expressions as if they'd bitten into something bitter. It was not a look one should give to their parent. Stop being such parasites. It's a nuisance. Old pensioners like you should just keep to yourselves, and only get involved in weddings and funerals. Hey, enough is enough. Although Tom scolded them, I just hung my head and clenched my fists. Not only did they wish for my husband's absence, but they also complained about the inheritance, and to top it off, they called me a parasite. Where did I go wrong in raising them? The thought brought tears to my eyes. But I couldn't break down here. I held back my emotions and addressed John and the rest with utmost calm. I've heard what you have to say. Let's cut ties. The eldest son and his wife looked surprised for a moment, but their expressions quickly turned smug. Uh-oh, really? That's more than we could have hoped for. So we don't have to deal with the old lady anymore? Lucky. As John and Emily quickly tried to leave, they made a snide remark to Tom and his wife. That means you two have to take care of the old lady now. Good luck taking care of the parasite. As John and Emily stormed off, Tom and his wife rushed to my side. Mom, are you okay? They're just too much. Catherine, we're always here for you. Please don't be disheartened. I, still looking down, raised my head and looked straight at the two of them. Tom, Karen, I have something to tell you. Several months later, while I was relaxing at home, John and Emily, accompanied by Tom, appeared. What's going on? I thought we had severed ties, hadn't we? Hey, old lady, we've got something to discuss. Yes, let us in. The eldest son and his wife shouted at the entrance with flushed faces. Then, from the side, Tom spoke apologetically. I'm sorry, Mom. They asked about the house, and I just told them. It's all right. For now, everyone come in. I let them into the house. As soon as they were led to the living room, the eldest son and his wife began to shout. What do you mean you gave the house to him? Exactly. What do you mean by overlooking us, the eldest son and his wife? While watching the two of them, I spoke in a calm tone. I decided to hand over the house because Tom said he would maintain it along with the memories of his father. Wow, what's that supposed to mean? John, taken aback, stared at me. Tom and Karen have been a great support to me. It's only natural. I smiled warmly at the somewhat apologetic-looking Tom and Karen. Mom, thank you. That's not what we want to know. You said you'd take over the house yourself, didn't you? I glanced briefly at the eldest son's wife, who seemed about to froth at the mouth, and then explained. I thought I'd hand it over if you could respect the wishes of both your father and me. Besides, I've started receiving rental income. What do you mean by that? Sighing towards the astonished eldest son, I calmly spoke. Remember last year, when my father, your grandfather, passed away? Tom attended the funeral, but you said you were too far away and didn't attend, remember? Well, about that. Your grandfather was a landlord who owned several buildings and apartments. I finally settled that inheritance and started receiving rental income. The eldest son and his wife looked as if they had been shot by a bolt from the blue. We weren't informed about this. I didn't tell you? Hey, about the rental income. How much are you talking about? Well, it's about $2 million a year, so it's easy to give a house to my lovely son and his wife. Then, the eldest son and his wife abruptly stood up. Wait, hold on a second. If it's about this son and his wife, then we should also. Why should I share my assets with someone who called me a parasite? You're the ones who told me to stay out of your lives, right? Well, about that. If you're going to call me a parasite, then please don't leech off of me. As I firmly stated, the eldest son and his wife seemed to be at a loss for words. I glared at the two of them and pointed to the entrance. Well, our conversation is over, isn't it? Please leave. Wait, just a moment. Mom, please listen to me. The eldest son approached me in a fluster and suddenly clung to my arm. I looked at him with cold eyes. I see no reason to be called Mom by you. Please. You can give us a house or money too, right? We're in trouble. The eldest son's wife pleaded loudly. I looked at the two of them and spoke. Huh? In trouble? What do you mean? The eldest son then started talking hesitantly. We kind of spent recklessly thinking that Dad's inheritance would come in. And we got into a bit of debt. I forcefully pulled away the eldest son's arm. Unbelievable. I never thought you would do something this stupid. You sowed the seeds of your own actions, so deal with it yourselves. Mom. That's just too much. I addressed the frustrated expressions of the eldest son and his wife. From now on, I'll start transferring the assets to Tom through lifetime gifts. I won't give a single dollar to you, whom I've severed ties with. Don't ever bother me again. Tom stood up, raising the eldest son and his wife who had slumped down. If you understand, then leave quickly. Don't come your mom or us from now on. Tom assured the two of them out like deflated balloons. As I was still catching my breath, Tom patted my back. Afterward, the eldest son and his wife apparently kept borrowing more money to pay off their debt, eventually leading to bankrupt. I heard that their apartment is in shambles, and they constantly argue with each other at night. For them, who couldn't even prioritize their family, there doesn't seem to be a promising future. As for me, I handed the house over to Tom and bought an assisted living apartment nearby. Tom and his wife often come to visit, and recently, a cute grandchild was born. Moving forward, I want to cherish each day while building a good relationship with my second. Since family, that's my plan. This house belongs to me. Hurry up and go back to your own homes. When I shouted in frustration, my daughter-in-law Emma said, obviously, this house is better. If you don't like it, why don't you leave, mother-in-law? From now on, my sons and I will live in this house. Unwanted people, please leave. Leave quickly. We'll handle the mortgage payments. Just because you've been paying something like rent doesn't mean you can act all high and mighty. Can't believe what my daughter-in-law and grandchildren, who had always relied on me for everything in their lives, are saying. I was dumbfounded. Fine, I got it. Please handle all the future payments. I'll transfer all the property rights to the two of you. While saying this, I couldn't help but think, just rent? Well, it's $6,000 a month. All the procedures are done. From now on, I entrust everything to you. I will never associate with you ever again. Goodbye. Feeling their smirking gazes, I left the room. My name is Mia. I'm turning 73 this year. Officially, I'm unemployed. When I was young, I fell in love with a man I met in a company research lab, and we got married. Soon after, I got pregnant. Back then, there weren't maternity leave systems like today, and having a research job was tough. So I resigned, and took on jobs like translating documents at home while raising my child. Technical documents with specialized terms required considerable knowledge to translate. Because of my research background and my husband being in the same field, I was trusted, securing a stable income. After our son, Chris, was born, we built a house slightly away from the city center. When you're free, you can write reports at home. When research gets busy, you'll be stuck at the office. This way, there's balance. My husband laughed, a typical scientist. And so we continued this life until his retirement. After retirement, just like me, he also took on contract work from home. My husband passed away 3 years ago, and I decided to move to my current apartment. My son, Chris, married when he was 28. I'm thinking of getting married. Actually, we're expecting a child. My husband and I were very surprised, but we were overjoyed by the good news. Soon after, Chris brought his fiancée, Emma, to introduce her to us. I'm Emma. Nice to meet you. Please take care of me. Emma was a sophisticated beauty, the very image of a city girl. It was unexpected for Chris to choose someone like her, but what surprised us even more was her age. I'm 18 years old. Why would Chris, 10 years her senior, be with a teenager? However, Emma was already pregnant. It wouldn't be right for us as parents to oppose when they both wished for it. Though my husband and I were a bit perplexed, we blessed Chris and Emma. That evening, the two of them stayed at our house, but Emma mostly looked at her phone and hardly conversed with us. She then commented, "Why did you build a house in such a countryside? Even if I inherit this house in the future, it's too rural and it would just be problematic." Both my husband and I were too shocked and astounded to reply. "Emma, I have frequent transfers right now, so it's difficult, but I also want my own house someday. This is my parents' house, and I don't know if I'll inherit it or not." Chris tried to reason with her. "In that case, we can live in the house Chris builds and just sell this one." At Emma's words, neither I, my husband, nor even Chris could respond. Would Chris really be okay marrying a girl like her? I was concerned, but couldn't voice it out. It seemed my husband felt the same, and we decided to simply watch over them silently for now. Shortly after, as Emma entered the stable period of her pregnancy, and her belly wasn't too noticeable yet, they had their wedding ceremony, a reception at a city hotel that had a sudden cancellation. Emma was undeniably beautiful, so the wedding ceremony was exceptionally splendid. The wedding went smoothly without any issues, and my husband and I returned to her home. Meanwhile, Chris went back to the apartment he rented in the city to start his new life with Emma. At that time, Chris was on a temporary assignment in a provincial city. But because Emma disliked living there, they decided to rent a place in the city. After the ceremony and a week-long vacation, Chris returned to his work in the provincial city. Thus, the two began their married life living separately. After all, I have a baby in my belly, right? What if there's no hospital in such a rural place? What if something happens and we can't get medical help in time? Wouldn't it be fine for her to live with Chris at least initially? That was my suggestion, but Emma's response was as stated above. Given the concern for the child, it was hard to argue against that. As a result, while Chris was away for work, my husband and I supported Emma. Chris, how did you and Emma meet? Where did you meet and what led to your relationship? After their marriage, during one of Chris' solo visits to our home, I asked him this. Since they had decided to marry quickly before their child was born, I hadn't had a chance to learn about their relationship in detail. Chris had come home at this time hoping to be with his wife before the birth, but Emma had told him, "Why did you come back unexpectedly?" "I didn't think you'd come home, so I made plans to travel with friends. After the birth, I might not be able to go out easily. So he came to our house instead." According to Chris, they met at a place he visited for a company dinner. Emma was working there as a part-time employee. She introduced herself as Emma there, and I thought it was a fake name, but it turned out to be her real name. When I mentioned it was unusual for her to use her real name, she said she wasn't embarrassed about her job, so she used her actual name. That's when I began to like her. After getting her contact information, he visited the place a few more times. At one point, she approached him saying, "Hey, what do you think of me, Chris? I might have fallen for you." As their relationship grew closer, she revealed, "Actually, I'm pregnant." That led to their decision to marry. My husband and I were quite shocked, but we told him, "Don't worry about the circumstances of how you met. What matters is how you, Chris, will make Emma and your upcoming child happy in the future." We decided not to discuss their meeting any further. Even after that, Chris continued to get transferred for work, but Emma never once accompanied him. "I can't possibly move with the twins. It's just not feasible." Indeed, Emma became the mother of twin boys. I named them Liam and Noah. Cool, right? These days, no one could criticize her, but Emma decided on their names without consulting Chris. Chris started living at his own house when the sons reached middle school age. Man, it's tough when dad's around. Totally. He complains about everything. Can't stand it. Exactly. Better when he's gone. Wish he'd go back to living alone. The sons treated their father like he was in the way, and Emma told him, "With 4 adults in the house, it's too cramped. Why don't you go to your parents on the weekends?" Consequently, Chris often returned to her place. Honestly, I feel more at ease at my parents' house. Seeing the lonely figure of Chris, both my husband and I felt sorry for him. But this was a decision Chris had made, and as his parents, we couldn't interfere. It was heart-wrenching, but all we could do was watch in silence. Around this time, my husband Bob reached his retirement age. With Chris coming back, it was a joy to finally spend quality time as father and son. However, seeing our son being treated poorly by his wife and children made us feel a mix of emotions as time went by. And then, 3 years ago, Bob passed away. I feel like I'm catching a cold. After saying that, his health rapidly deteriorated, and he passed away suddenly. I was in shock and could only cry. Mom, constant crying won't bring Dad peace. I want you to live long for both yourself and Dad. So even though it's tough, please look ahead. Around that time, Chris received an offer to work overseas. Unlike his previous assignments, he wouldn't be able to return home for 3 years. It would ease my mind if you were in the city, Mom. There are big hospitals and Emma and the boys are there. I know it might not be much, but if things get really tough, please reach out. Encouraged by Chris, I left the house where I'd lived for many years and moved to a condo near Chris's place. I purchased a unit in a newly built condo located in a convenient part of the city center. Wow, mother-in-law, that's amazing. Right? I'd be so happy living here. Me too. I want to brag to my friends. My grandchildren, who are now in high school, said in unison. What surprised me was that even Emma said, "Mother-in-law, it must be lonely living here by yourself. Let's live together." She barely ever associated with me before, but now that I've bought a new apartment, she's like this. I was flabbergasted. By the way, mother-in-law, isn't the loan for this place high? How much is it? Her ulterior motive was clear. Well, maybe around the cost of rent? I avoided giving the exact amount and responded vaguely. Oh, I see. When can we move in then? She's really set on living here. I'd appreciate it if you refrained. I had no idea I would come to regret this rejection. Understood. We'll hold off then. I was relieved when Emma readily agreed, but at this point, she had misunderstood hold off as gradually. Who could have imagined that? When life in the apartment had started to settle, Emma and the 2 grandchildren began visiting more frequently. How are you, Grandma? Feeling good? You haven't been feeling ill or anything, right? Thank you. I'm as lively as ever. I was genuinely delighted by their words. I believed they were genuinely concerned about my well-being. Initially, the 3 of them would visit, have some tea and leave after a short while. However, these visits started to stretch longer. They began to have lunch and then dinner and eventually started asking. It's getting late. Can we stay the night? I thought, why not just once? But after I allowed it, the frequency increased. Before I knew it, they were staying over more often than not. Emma, isn't it about time you checked on your own house? It's fine. Besides, don't you think you should get out of the house every now and then? If you don't, you'll grow a mold. Interestingly, she started making more remarks, trying to get me out of the house. Grandma, can I have some pocket money? Me too. Me too. Both grandkids started asking me for money. I didn't give them much, but I did hand over some occasionally. After all, grandchildren are so precious. They would shower me with affectionate words, making me want to spoil them even more. I realized that I also had a part to play in this. Within a year in this lax situation, the 3 of them had essentially moved into my apartment. While they would go back to their homes or go out, they ultimately returned to my apartment. However, there was one thing I never compromised on. I never gave them keys to my place. This is my home. The 3 of you have your own place. When I'm not here, please return to your own homes and don't come into mine. I was firm on this boundary. If not, I had an innate feeling that someday they might take over my apartment completely. A year later, Noah and Liam graduated from high school. What do you 2 plan to do after graduation? Both of them didn't seem to be preparing for exams or job hunting, so I once asked out of concern. They responded, "Oh, we've already decided our path. Don't worry about it." Furthermore, Emma told me, I am their mother, so please refrain from making unnecessary comments. It left me with no choice but to remain silent. Another 2 years passed, and while the grandchildren appeared to be occasionally busy with something, they neither seemed to be attending college nor holding down a steady job. Emma seemed to be out enjoying herself most of the time, leaving all the household responsibilities to me. Emma, have you been in contact with Chris? There's a time difference, so it's challenging. But please don't concern yourself with it. It felt like talking to a brick wall. Would this situation continue until Chris returns? After enduring for another 2 years, I received a message from Chris saying he would be returning soon. Finally, all four of us can live together as a family. That's wonderful. To my words, the three of them clearly showed disgust. Do you not like the idea? Of course we don't. While I was rendered speechless, the two grandchildren chimed in. I thought something might happen to Grandma before Dad comes back. Seriously, you've been so lively all along. If you had become weaker, we might have gotten this apartment. Well, it won't be much longer now. The two of them laughed and seemed to be enjoying the conversation. Then it dawned on me, their seemingly caring words were all in hopes that I'd weaken and be out of the picture. I was at a loss for words. There were times I was so distressed that I felt my health would deteriorate. But I endured, thinking it was all just until Chris returned. This house isn't mine. Go back to your own home immediately. When I screamed out of exasperation, my daughter-in-law, Emma, retorted, obviously, this house is better. If you don't like it, why don't you leave? From now on, my sons and I will live in this house. Anyone extra should leave. Just leave already. We'll handle the mortgage payments. Don't act all high and mighty just because you've been paying some rent. Was this really coming from my daughter-in-law and grandchildren, who had depended on me for everything? I was taken aback. Fine, I get it. I'll make sure all payments from now on are your responsibility. I'll also transfer the ownership to both of you. As I said this, I couldn't help but think, just rent money, huh? Well, it's $6,000 a month. Hee hee. Seeing me seemingly give in, the three of them gleefully exclaimed, yes. Thank you, Grandma. Thank you so much. I made up my mind and proceeded to do what needed to be done. All the procedures are completed. I trust you'll handle everything from now on. I won't associate with any of you ever again. Farewell. Feeling their smug gazes on me, I left the room. A month later, as expected, a frantic Emma called me. Mother-in-law, explain this. What are you talking about? About the apartment. So, what about it? Stop playing games. Emma on the other side of the phone was furious. I got a call from some unfamiliar company telling me if I can't pay the loan, I should leave the house. Well, that's to be expected. Explain it to me. What's there to explain? It's only natural that you'd be told that if you can't pay the loan. I said dismissively, when you take out a mortgage to buy a house, you have to pay a fixed amount every month. You knew that. You said you'd handle the payments. Didn't you? Yes, but the amount is too high. I can't believe you were paying this much before. Emma exclaimed in anger. The mortgage is just around the rent amount. Only $6,000, right? Only $6,000? Her scream was deafening. What do you mean only $6,000? What do you mean it's just rent? Did you deceive me? No, it's just a typical rent price. It's the rent for a condo in a prime location downtown. That much is expected. It wouldn't even be surprising if the rent for an upper floor was over $10,000. That's roughly the market rate around here. Look it up. You're kidding me. Emma was in shock. The real surprise was on me. How could she not have noticed this? Anyway, how are Noah and Liam? You said their futures were settled, so I changed the ownership. How are they doing? I didn't let up on my offensive. By the way, in addition to the loan, don't forget about the management fees and the repair reserve payments. What is that? Condominiums have necessary expenses. There are also property taxes, utility bills, insurance, and other payments to consider. So work together and do your best. She doesn't respond. It seems she's in shock. Emma, can you hear me? Mother-in-law, What? Can you come back to this condo? Can you live with us again? The three of us can't handle the finances. I see, but I decided not to get involved ever again. She should remember that promise. Anyway, do your best with the three of you. Let Noah and Liam know. Goodbye. Mother-in-law, wait. I hung up the phone and immediately blocked Emma, Noah, and Liam. I felt relieved. Not long after, Chris returned to the country and divorced Emma. I also filed a suit in the family court to deny any connection with the two grandchildren. Chris wasn't the father of Noah and Liam. Emma had once fallen for the top stripper at a club and became pregnant with his child. But for the stripper, Emma was just another client. So he denied paternity. Emma then targeted Chris, who happened to visit the club, claimed the child was his, and even led the story to marriage. My son was truly pitiful. It seemed that Chris had genuinely fallen for Emma and had never doubted her. Coincidentally, Noah and Liam looked so much like Emma and they weren't completely dissimilar to Chris. So there was no room for suspicion. The names Noah and Liam seemed to have been taken from their real father, the stripper. Emma often told her two sons how cool the stripper named Ryan was, and it seemed she told them they could make a lot of money if they ever became the top stripper. Taking it to heart, the two sons started working part-time at Ryan's club. But apparently, they were of no use. After returning home and hearing the story from me, Chris decided on a divorce. At the time he was gathering evidence, Emma was seen pleading with Ryan. So he managed to capture that scene as evidence. Chris then demanded a blood test from Noah, Liam, and Ryan, and it was clearly revealed the true parent-child relationship. And so Chris sought compensation from Emma. Emma had deceived Chris for a long 20 years. The amount of compensation for that was astronomical, and Chris didn't actually think he could claim the full amount, but it was a matter of principle. Now I've moved back to the house where I originally lived with my husband, and I'm living with Chris. Although we moved away when we lived in the city center condominium, we never sold it. As part of the inheritance from my husband, the title had been transferred to Chris. I inherited something different from my husband. When he was in his research lab, he had patented something, and what I inherited was the right to receive the patent fee. The amount was so large that you could live a life of leisure for a lifetime, but my husband, who was a born researcher, continued his personal research even after retirement alongside translating academic papers. There are also patent fees for minor patents related to that. The same goes for me. The academic translations I continue to work on are highly appreciated. Combining those incomes, there was no need to pay the mortgage for that condo. It seemed Emma and her group misunderstood that I, being unemployed, was paying a cheap mortgage with my pension. Chris is angry with Emma, but he says he is also to blame for neglecting his family for work and quit his job. Now he's working for a company near his parents' house and seems to be taking the time to think about how to live from now on. A few years later, Chris ended up remarrying a female colleague. His spouse also had a past where she was harassed by her ex-husband, and they divorced. They seemed to have clicked instantly. Now they have built a marital relationship as close as old friends, and then a lovely grandchild was born. Now I live with my son, his wife, and my beloved grandchild, the four of us together. My granddaughter toddles around and with a lisping voice calls out, "Grandma! Grandma!" clinging to me. Every day I'm so smitten with her that I truly feel the same. I wouldn't even feel pain if I put her